Hey guys, it's Alex. Welcome to my June Rereadathon reflections video. It's kind of astounding to me that this is month 6 and I'm still going strong. The prompt for this month is to reread a series or a book from a series, and I picked 2 that I actually want to reread. The first is Harry Potter, and I've already reread the first 5 books. I didn't film it for my reflections video because I did a 24-hour Harry Potter reading marathon and I vlogged that, so I will link the vlog to that down below. But I do have the last 2 books that I need to finish, 6 and 7. I will talk about both of these in this video, but if you're interested in my thoughts on the other 5, definitely go check out the vlog. It's just like me getting progressively tired over the course of like 15 minutes. But super excited to get into these. I kind of took a break after the vlog thing just because I had a lot of other books to read, and I kind of was okay with a little break from Harry Potter after a full 24 hours. The other series that I want to read is the Protector of the Small series by Tamara Pierce. I only have the first book with me, but there are 4 books in the series. This is the 3rd series in the Tortel universe, and I've been slowly trying to make my way through all of Tamara Pierce's Tortel books this year. Super excited. I do remember this one having fewer issues than the other 2 series that I've read. This one's a little bit newer. It was late 90s, early 2000s, where the others were 80s and early 90s, so social issues wise, I'm hoping this one will be much better. I'm remembering it being better, and just in general, I'm very excited for this and to continue on in the Tortel universe. So I am about halfway through Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. You can kind of see it when the light does not make the entire thing disappear. I am really enjoying it. I love this cover. Like, I think of all of these type of covers, this one's my favorite. Just like the green with the purple font over it is just like gorgeous. But I'm having a really good time reading this, and it's like interesting the little things that I pick up and my mind focuses on. Like rereading the whole series. Obviously Percy and his whole subplot was always a very big deal. Like, not saying it wasn't, but it is interesting to think about now and like see how prevalent it is, like from book 4 onwards. Like, it's a very interesting story, and just like the ostracization of a member of like one of the prominent families in this book. And it's interesting, and like I really enjoy that. And it's also interesting because with that you can kind of think about how different it would have been if Percy had been in Slytherin. Like, genuinely, it would have been so different. And I'm not just saying like because Slytherins are bad, but because of the way the different houses are treated in this book or in this series, and how different it would have been, because all the teasing and othering of Percy from his family was very much good-natured. Like, his parents were very proud of him, like his brothers were proud of him too, even if they like teased him about it, and it was never like truly mean until he kind of went off the rails in book 4. But like that would have been so different if he'd been in Slytherin from the beginning, because like Fred and George and Ron wouldn't have been very chill with that. Like, they would have been like, oh, he's the black sheep of the family. We don't talk about him. We don't really talk to him. We're polite when we need to be, but do not interact. And I really think he'd have become like a dark wizard if he'd been sorted into Slytherin. And like, just from his personality, that would have been very close. Like, I could see that being like a close second to Gryffindor just because of how ambitious he is. Like, not saying he's not brave, but it is interesting to think about. But like, I'm really enjoying this. I'd kind of forgotten how little happens in this book, that it's mostly just like teenage dramas and Harry thinking Malfoy's up to something at every turn, and I really enjoy it despite that. I think it's fun. Like, the romance is super cringy and awkward in this book, but like, there are a bunch of 15-year-olds who are dating for the first time. That's always going to be super cringy and awkward. But I'm really enjoying this, and this makes me very excited to get to book 7. It's been so long since I reread book 7, and that's the one I've reread the least, just because it was the most recent, and I read and reread all the ones prior to that. So I'm kind of like excited for things that are to come, because I do remember what happens. Like, I've read the series so many times, but there is so much that goes on that, like, you just don't remember every little detail, and I really like it. Like, it's really interesting to read and re-experience it. Today is the 28th. Very behind on my rereading this month, but I'm hoping to finish this tonight again, like, halfway, maybe a smidge more than halfway. I'd like to get it done tonight so that I can spend the last 2 days of the month reading book 7. I'm expecting that one to go by just as fast as this one is. It's just really, really fun to read, and I'm loving it. So it is the 29th, and I did actually finish Half-Blood Prince last night. I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, which I don't think is a surprise. I kind of did expect these last 3 books to all be 5 stars for me. But I think for me, I don't know, like, reading it and just remembering how I felt the first time I read it is, like, more than anything, honestly. Like, I don't remember when this was published. I must have been, like, 12 or something. Something along those lines of very young, still reading a lot of, like, children's literature. And this is kind of getting into the realm of not children's anymore, because they definitely don't kill the mentor in children's lit. Like, for kids' books, they don't. The mentor might disappear so the hero can shine on his own, but, like, I was not prepared for Dumbledore to die. As, like, an adult, his death doesn't shock me because it makes sense within the story, and it was hella foreshadowed for, like, this entire book. But as a kid, like, I did not see that coming in the slightest. And I don't know, like, it just, like, rereading it and feeling that shock all over of, oh my god, he's gonna die, even though, like, obviously I know he's going to die. I've read this book like 5 or 6 times. I also think it's interesting to read it and look at Dumbledore's actions, because Dumbledore knows he's going to die. Not necessarily, like, when or how, but, like, he's got a pretty good idea of, my life is now measured in months, not years, because of the curse to his hand. So, like, it's interesting because he does come across as, like, much more emotional in this book, and, like, it's like he's trying to finish things, whereas in the other books it was always like we'll talk about that when we have time. There's all the time in the world, and I don't know, like, I've definitely read this book being older and knowing he's going to die, but I think this was the first time that I really paid attention to how he must be feeling and how that influences his actions, which is interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Less definitely happens, and I did remember the battle at the end being cooler as a kid. There's a lot of, like, let's recap the battle after it happened, which is mildly annoying, but whatever. It was still, like, cool. And I'm still mad that it wasn't in the movie at all, and that Bill winds up with, like, one slash across his cheek when, like, in the book his entire face is ravaged, which, okay, that's definitely how that happened. But yeah, overall, I really love this book. I've already started Deathly Hallows, but I'm only like 2 chapters in, so I'm hoping to make decent progress on that today and probably update you guys when it's like evening, nighttime. The interesting thing that I'm kind of noting about Deathly Hallows is that this is the first of the Harry Potter books that starts with a death, a big death. Like, I know Goblet of Fire, like, technically Frank the Muggle died at the beginning, but, like, let's be real, no one cared about Frank the Muggle. Like, I'm sorry he died, but didn't care. This is the first that has a big death at the beginning. 4, 5, and 6 all end with a big death, with Cedric and Sirius and Dumbledore getting, like, more and more dramatic as it builds up. And I think going into this book, I kind of expected it to do the same and, like, end with another big death. But this just starts with death. Like, right off the bat, Hedwig's dead, Mad Eye's dead. This is intense. Like, it just opens. Like, you know bad things are gonna happen. And it's interesting. I mean, like, sad, obviously. But, yeah, like, this book really takes a turn. Like, the others got very dark, obviously. Like, Dumbledore died. But this one really takes that turn into nobody's safe at any time. And I don't know. I like it. I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm like 100 pages in. A lot more to read still. I am finding many more inconsistencies in book 7 than with the rest of the books. Like, there are always, like, small inconsistencies that don't really matter about, like, just like random stuff, which is fine. Like I expect that in any series that has like this many books and this many pages. Like there are going to be small things that get lost. But this book, it just seems like there are a fair amount. Like the whole thing with the wizarding trace. When Dumbledore literally said in Half Blood Prince that the only way the Ministry could tell if an underage wizard was doing magic was if the underage wizard was like alone, and they just expected parents to kind of control that, and that they could tell someone did magic but they couldn't tell who. Like Dumbledore said that, and I was like, that's weird. I thought there was like a whole trace thing in the seventh book, and then we get to this and like there is a wizarding trace, and they're like, you can't do magic because the trace is on you until you use it until you turn 17, which like doesn't make sense. And then when the Death Eaters come to meet them in the coffee shop, Hermione says she's never done a memory charm before, but like 100 pages earlier, she just said that she modified her parents' memory, which doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, there are always like small things and they don't really matter. It's just like there's more of that in this book than I remember there being, and there's more of that in this book than in the rest of the books that I noticed. Like, there were always small things, but there's just more in this, and like it's kind of annoying. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm not like, wow, 2 stars because of the inconsistencies, but it is kind of mildly annoying. So I'm just at the part where like they've escaped Gringotts, and I realized something interesting is that the first movie, 7 Part 1, is only, it's the first 500 pages of the book. So 7 Part 2 is only like the last 250 pages, which is strange. Like, it's split into 2 movies, but like one of them takes up so much more space of the book. Like, I didn't realize quite how different it was, like the difference in page number, but like it's interesting, and I didn't really expect it. It also strikes me that like possibly breaking into Gringotts is not that hard if it only takes 3 17-year-olds to do it. 3 17-year-olds with the help of a goblin, but I feel like there are enough disgruntled goblins that like you could probably find one. And Harry's just like casual use of a unforgivable curse, like that's, I remembered that, and I remember reading that like, holy crap, Harry just used an unforgivable, like what's gonna happen? And I don't remember it really being dealt with very much. Maybe it's like more nuanced and I might notice it more as an adult, but I don't remember it much. Okay, I mean, that's not helpful. Yeah, she's gonna be here now, so I'm gonna go back and finish the book, and today is the 30th, so hopefully I will finish it tonight, because I've only got like another 200 pages left, maybe a little less. So it is July 1st, but at about 2 a.m. last night, I finished Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which means that I have completed the Rereadathon, and 2 a.m. on July 1st is kind of close enough to June 30th for me to be happy. So, final thoughts on this book. I love it, obviously, 5 stars. Obviously. I think it's a really good conclusion to the series, because I think this was a book that easily could have been a huge letdown and wasn't. Like, this had me tearing up at points. Like, when Dobby died, I really teared up. And I don't think I did the first time I read this. I think that was actually the first time that I teared up when Dobby died. And there are points in this book that are just so emotional and hit you so hard. And it makes me so happy to read. Like, reading this really brings back a lot of those nostalgic feelings from when I loved this series. And, like, this was everything to me as a kid. Like, this was what taught me how to write. This was just my life, honestly, and it was so much fun to revisit this, and I really should more frequently, just because it's one of my favorite series and it makes me so happy to read. And specifically what I love about this book is like all the redemption arcs and kind of the lack of redemption arcs in some cases, because there are several characters who have kind of gone down the wrong path who get redeemed in this book, who kind of like start making amends and admitting their wrongs and like start making things right, like trying to, like, obviously this is just the book, like it can be the beginning of their journey, but in general they get redemption arcs. And then there are other people who don't get redemption arcs, who fully embrace the evil that they've become, because this is a good versus evil book, in essence. And some people just remain evil throughout the book. But I think there's like this third category that I really love, which is the people who turn their back on evil, who have been evil, but they still don't get redeemed. Like, they've done the bare minimum of, okay, I'm not going to be evil anymore, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be a good person either. To put it in very, like, simple black and white terms, which obviously human nature is a lot more complex, but that's what I enjoy, is that I think in the 5th book, someone said something to Harry, it might have been Sirius, that, like, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. And I like that. I like that for this kids book that was good versus evil, it introduces these complex ideas of not everyone is going to get redeemed, but that doesn't mean they're still the same evil person they were at the beginning. They can be a selfish, awful person without literally being evil and murdering a bunch of people. But I loved it. It was fun. It was wonderful. So happy that I did revisit these finally, and I probably will on a more frequent basis in the future. Like, perhaps not every year, but every couple of years at least, because it's been 10 years almost since the last time I read these, and that was definitely too long. I also clearly did not get to The Protector of the Small series by Tamara Pierce, which is okay. I just kind of ran out of time this month. Hopefully I will get to them at some point soon. I did read another of her books this month that was not a reread for me. It was a new book, so not upset at that. It just didn't happen. I'm sure it will in the next couple of months. The July prompt is to reread a book by a favorite author, and I plan to read The President's Daughter series by Ellen Emerson White. She is one of my favorite authors, and this is one of my favorite book series of all time. Long May She Reign is the 4th book, and possibly my favorite book of all time. I adore it so much. This copy is super beat up just because, like, I've read it so many times. It was the only book I took to college with me, like, from home, because I knew this was a book that it would take me a long time to get through, and I could just pick it up, and I could read it multiple times, and I'd be happy, and it was the only book I took to college. I haven't reread it in a while because it is like 700, 800 pages. It's a contemporary. I got the whole series for myself for Christmas, so I'm very happy to get back into these books. Let me know down below if you participated in the June prompt for the Rereadathon, and let me know if you'll be participating in July in what you're reading. I'd love to hear your guys' updates on how you're doing with this. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.